Greetings, and welcome to A Year of Movies, a Planet Geek production. For this project, we are using the Ivan Walters reference book of 365 films to watch on the day they happened. Each day, we watch a movie associated with the date we are watching it on. And as it is the 12th of February, we are going to be watching A Mighty Heart from 2007. Directed by Michael Winterbottom and starring Angelina Jolie. I will admit that I was uncertain of what this actual movie was, and then when I went to look into it, I was like, oh, this movie. At the time, the early 2000s, kind of hard to avoid any sort of knowledge of a movie being made with Angelina Jolie involved with it. But that being said, I had not seen this movie, so this was a first-time viewing for me. So, not only does this movie star Angelina Jolie, but it also stars Dan Futterman, Will Patton, Archie Panjabi, Irfan Khan, Ali Khan, and Daniel O'Hare. So this is another reality movie, biopic of this woman who herself and her husband being journalists in Pakistan. And she is currently pregnant while her husband goes off to do an interview with a very prominent person. He then gets kidnapped by Islamic militants. And for the rest of the film, the wife, the Pakistani police, the FBI, and the diplomatic secret service all work together to try and hunt for him. Sections of the movie are told in slight flashback little sequences, but we travel through a documented date of things happening from the beginning of the movie until the unfortunately tragic end of it. So this is a very tragic movie, and at times kind of difficult to watch due to not only the brutal subject matter of also being based on a real event. We are dealing with very seasoned actors doing fantastic jobs of portraying the urgency and the emotions. And again, Angelina Jolie just does a fabulous job, as she normally does. And it's nice to see her in a non-glamorous role, acting to the height of her abilities, which is just so shocking at sometimes. So when it comes to the date associated with this movie, we're dealing where the gentleman of who is responsible for the kidnapping turns himself into the secret police and then is arrested, quote unquote arrested, by the regular police on February 12th, 2009. And that is at the 1 hour and 16 minute mark into a 1 hour and 48 minute movie. All right, and as it is the 13th of February, we are going to be watching The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. Directed by Michel Gondry and starring Jim Carrey. So at the time this movie was originally coming out, it was kind of hard to avoid any sort of news article or entertainment programming about the making of or just the starring actors for this movie. I believe that while I had not seen this movie in its entirety, I was well more aware of the practical effects that they used to achieve certain scenes within this movie, different editing styles and whatnot, and the use of different camera tricks to pull off some fantastic footage. That being said, not only does this movie star Jim Carrey, but it also stars Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, Tom Wilkinson, Jane Addams, and David Cross. So we're dealing with a very romantic sort of fantasy sci-fi movie where there's a development of technology where it allows someone to go into someone else's memories and remove an actual particular person from their memories. So they in a hurt relationship, they can have them completely removed from their memories and then go upon their lives and whatnot. Jim Carrey's character of Joel finds out that the woman he had been seeing for 2 years, played by Kate Winslet, Clementine, gone through this procedure, and he decides, out of spite, to have the same thing done. And that's where we spend a good portion of this movie dealing with Joel going through this procedure as we witness his memories slowly being erased. The movie twists and turns in on itself at different points. We are given the information of the actual storyline of the movie in different sort of piece together puzzles pieces, and yeah, it's really great. I mean, Jim Carrey does a fantastic acting job. Kate Winslet is fantastic. It's a very heartwarming story that is not a surprise that it pulls off with such talent involved with making this movie. And like I said at the beginning, a lot of the camera work and whatnot in the dream logic way that this movie plays out, and the changing of stuff, how it's such a fascinating watch just to witness all of the stuff playing out on the screen in front of you. It's very beautifully done. It's a very entertaining movie, and I'm sorry it actually took me this long to get around to actually seeing this full movie. Having seen several sequences of this movie, which was kind of neat to go into this full watching and go like, this is the sequence they were talking about, and like seeing the whole sequence instead of just the chopped up to show, hey, this is how the camera worked and all that sort of thing. So seeing those full scenes put together was kind of neat. But yeah, no, fantastic movie, well acted. The directing is fantastic, and yeah. So as we play into the date that's associated with this movie, Joel decides to have the procedure done to him on February 13th, 2004, and that's about 17 minutes into this 1 hour and 43-minute movie. The Academy Awards also agreed with how good the movie is by giving it a win for Best Original Screenplay, and it also got an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress for Kate Winslet. All right, as it is the 14th of February, we are going to be watching Sleepless in Seattle from 1993, directed by Nora Ephron and starring Tom Hanks. Now, this is one of those movie titles that it's kind of hard to avoid not watching. Unless you actively go out of your way to avoid seeing this movie, you're going to eventually see it at some point in your life. And I have seen this movie. This will be probably not a constant rewatch in my life, but I have seen it a handful of times. A lot of times catching sequences of it on regular television, flipping through channels on the weekends, catching scenes and whatnot. But this is probably my first full start to finish watch in quite a while. So like I had mentioned earlier, it does star Tom Hanks as well as Meg Ryan, Bill Pullman, Rosie O'Donnell, Gabby Hoffman, Victor Garber, Ross Mangler, and Barbara Garwick. So this movie deals with two separate people trying to deal with different ways of experiencing life through love, either the loss of it, the losing of it, the striving to find it once again. This is a very humorous movie. While it has a fantastic cast to do that, the leads, Tom and Meg, are just fantastic, as this is the first of their several pairings throughout this era of movie making. But yeah, it's a very sweet and wholesome love story where our main characters don't actually fully meet up until the very end of our movie. There is a sequence where they do meet at one point, but it's nothing that is too substantial. Like I said, it's got a great supporting cast. It's great to see movies from this era being as almost wholesome as they are. It's nice to see Bill Pullman doing a fantastic job as a comedic in a comedic role. Those backing up Tom Hanks, including the young gentleman that plays his son, they have great chemistry together, and it's really an endearing time back to when movies were just enjoyable, and the movie isn't in your face with a huge amount of romance, but again, as the main part of this movie does center around the proposed meeting of the two coast to coast people to meet on Valentine's Day in 1993. And that actually happens at an hour and 19 minutes into this hour and 45-minute story. And when it comes to the Academy Awards, it got nominated for Best Original Song and Best Original Screenplay. And as it is the 15th of February, we are going to be watching Some Like It Hot from 1959, directed by Billy Wilder and starring Marilyn Monroe. So to begin with, I have to give you a little bit of context about my experience with movies. I saw this movie at a very young age. I was into my interest of watching movies. And one of the big things that we would do at our household is we would watch Saturday Night at the Movies, a television show that was on TVO Ilwe Yost, and it was just always on because of the amount of effort that went into the productions of the movies that would be shown on this program. We got a lot of interviews with cast members and behind the scenes information and whatnot peppered throughout. It was like a mini documentary to go with every single movie that they showed. And Some Like It Hot was one of the first ones that I can fully remember watching and falling in love with this movie just from the get-go. So like I just mentioned, it not only stars Marilyn Monroe, but it also stars Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, Pat O'Brien, Edward G. Robinson Jr., and Joe E. Brown. So to me, this movie probably has a lot of firsts that are introduced to me as a movie watcher. I believe this is the first Marilyn Monroe movie that I ever saw, and this is also the first Jack Lemmon movie that I can remember seeing. Both of which going on to becoming very sought after when would later come up. I definitely became a fan of both Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon from this point on. Tony Curtis as well, fantastic job. The two of them, the Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, work so well together. And then the hauntingly fabulous performance that Marilyn does, especially involving scenes with both versions of either of these gentlemen, where they play basically hiding out from the mob. They decide to try and disguise themselves as into an all-girls band. It's just so fantastic. I would also later grow on to realize who director Billy Wilder was, and the vast array of fantastic movies that he did over his career, much of which I really enjoy quite often. But this movie has such a sweet, wholesome undertone that is kind of hard to ignore, and it's just the ease of which these actors portray these characters with such depth and such conviction that is very, very impressive. And again, being beautifully directed, it's just a fantastic, and there's no reason why this is not a classic movie, especially when it comes to a Marilyn Monroe performance. So after disguising themselves as women and basically putting themselves into this all-girls band, they basically leave town from where Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis were running from, and they end up in Florida the next day, which is February 15th, 1929, which is about 37 minutes into this 2-hour film. And when it comes to the Academy Awards, this movie ended up winning for Best Costume Design, Black and White, as well as being nominated for Best Actor for Jack Lemmon, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Black and White, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. And as it is the 16th of February, we're going to be watching Caroline from 2009, directed by Henry Selick and starring the voice talent of Dakota Fanning. So to begin with, I am a fan of animation, from hand-drawn 3D to stop motion, and everything in between. I'm particularly fascinated by the amount of skills and talents that goes into something like a stop motion animated feature, such as this movie here. I went to see this movie when it opened in theaters. It just happened to be at an appropriate time where I was all like, yeah, no, I can go see a cartoon movie if I wanted to. Also, the fact that it's based on a Neil Gaiman story to begin with also just added bonus points to this particular watch. And while I haven't seen it on a regular basis, I think it was quite an enjoyable rewatch this time around. Now, where I did mention that the voice talent is of Dakota Fanning, it also features Terry Hatcher, John Hodgman, Keith David, Robert Bailey, Jennifer Saunders, Don French, and Ian McShane. So this is a fantastically, beautifully animated feature from the mind of Neil Gaiman. It's hauntingly beautiful, so seamlessly animated, fantastic voice work as well, extremely colorful, definitely a delight to see. While the story is oriented towards a younger audience, older audiences can definitely enjoy it as well, if not just for the fact of the phenomenal creation that it is, but the story is very engrossing and involving and very beautifully portrayed through the emotions of these stop motion figures. It is disturbing at times. It is very entertaining throughout, and it's just a brilliant watch. It's kind of hard to go into the great details of this movie because there's so much packed into such a short movie, and it's just a fantastical thing to witness. It's a story about a girl who is not happy with her current living situation, just the environment that she's currently in, and then finds a mystical doorway to enter another realm where things are going the way that she would really appreciate that they go, until, in typical fantasy animated style, things start to turn, and then she realizes how much she really wants to get out of that, back to her own world and whatnot. And again, it's a fantastic story to watch. So at a very early point in this movie, Caroline and her mother actually visit a President's Day sale on February 16th, 2009, which is about 40 minutes into this hour and 40-minute movie. Now, I did, however, forget to mention, when I originally saw it in the theater, I got to see a 3D version of it. And while you don't miss anything seeing it not in 3D, the 3D of an animated feature like a stop motion movie is just so fantastic to witness, especially when it actually is filmed in the environment of a three-dimensional film to begin with, not one that has been converted. And for the Academy Awards that year, it got nominated as Best Animated Feature for that year. And as it is the 17th of February, we are going to be watching Three Came Home from 1950, directed by Jean Naglusko and starring Claudette Colbert. So my history with this movie is, I have no idea what this movie is. I am aware of this movie now that I've actually seen the movie, but prior to this, I was unaware of the movie itself. I am aware of the events that centers around it, and it seems like a few of the movies on this list at this time of the year seem to be centered around this incident, which is, we're dealing with another World War II situation with in and around the bombing of Pearl Harbor sequence and whatnot as part of. That's not the major part of this particular movie, but it just happens to be around that time in history. So as I did say, this movie does star Claudette Colbert, as well as Patrick Knowles, Florence Desmond, Susie Hayakawa, Sylvia Andrew, Mark Kinning, and Phyllis Morris. I was unaware of this, but this is a story based on true event. This is actually from the memoirs of Agnes Newton Keith, who is the woman that Claudette Colbert portrays in this movie. This is basically a situation that happens where her family, living in British North Borneo in 1941, well, her husband and son. However, the Japanese do arrive and end up occupying the country, putting the men and women of all the families that are living in this area into separate POW camps. Now, the story of the imprisonment lasts for quite a few years, and we see Agnes going through all the trials and tribulations of being a POW. All the women and children in the one camp being basically forced around by the Japanese soldiers that have kept them in the POW camp that they are currently residing in. So it's a very, very troubling movie to watch of, again, a reflection back on an era of an era sort of thing. While this movie is set in the mid-40s, it being released in the 50s puts it really close to the actual happenings of the events that are portrayed on screen. And it is a very, obviously, emotional and impactful events that happen. And a lot of atrocities do occur. And this woman, through her memoirs, which is where we get this story, is the title itself, Three Came Home. So seeing there is technically only three of them, it's a bit of a spoiler. But that being said, it still is very heart-wrenching at moments and all that, especially when we deal with the date of February 17th, 18. Especially when we deal with the date of February 17th, 1945. And that's during an event during the evening. One of the Japanese guards actually attack Agnes. The incident itself happens at an hour and about 7 minutes into this movie that is an hour and 46 minutes long. One of the other tragic things that happens. At the beginning of the movie, we find out that Agnes is pregnant with another child. But when the doctor comes by to announce the fact that she is pregnant, they are sitting on the porch, and he opens up a cigarette case and offers her a smoke, which at the moment she does deny, but later on in the movie, again, we're dealing with this whole it's a time in history and it's a time in filmmaking where everybody smoked, and it's just weird to see the amount of smoking going on. And as this is the 18th of February, we are going to be watching Breach from 2007, directed by Billy Ray and starring Chris Cooper. All right, so to begin with, I was aware of this movie to begin with, a fan of Chris Cooper, who stars in this movie, as well as Ryan Phillippe as well, who is his co-star in the movie. But until I started watching it this time, that I didn't think that I knew that it was actually based on a true story. Now, true story in the loosest of senses. Apparently, doing a little bit of research, turns out they've embellished a little, but these are actually a real life. This is a real life event that actually did occur back in 2001. So as originally stated, that this movie does star Chris Cooper as well as Ryan Phillippe. It also stars Laura Linney, Caroline de Habermas, Dennis Haysbert, Gary Cole, Kathleen Quinlan, and Bruce David. So this is kind of a cool, espionage movie from the 2000s. The actual events took place, like I said, in the early 2000s. And this is a really great character study of both these characters, portrayed by Chris Cooper and Ryan Phillippe. One, the younger of the two, is set to basically kind of spy on the other, and his higher ups believe that he is basically considered to be a spy against the U.S. government. So it plays out like a really great whodunit sort of thing. Of course, we follow the majority of it through Ryan Phillippe's perspective, as we follow him doing his duties to basically keep tabs on Chris Cooper's character. And as the audience, we also question the authority of Laura Linney, who is in charge of Ryan Phillippe to get him into this assignment, where we're not 100% sure if what they're looking for is actually there to begin with. And again, it keeps you guessing throughout the whole entire thing. There's a lot of loyalty is tested for both between the two gentlemen, as well as Ryan Phillippe and his wife, played by Caroline de Havernas. But it's very well acted. Again, Chris Cooper is a fantastic actor to begin with. So anything that Chris Cooper does, I always enjoy watching, which is great, because I hadn't actually seen this movie, and it was a surprise to actually finally sit down and see this. So the actual dated event of this movie actually takes place on February 18th, 2001, at about 1 hour and 32 minutes into this 1 hour and 50-minute movie, where Chris Cooper's character does a final his final dead drop to his informants, where he gets arrested for the crime. So that's going to wrap up this particular episode, and we're going to look out into the future to see what movie you're going to be seeing for tomorrow, which is going to be February 19th, and that's going to be You've Got Mail from 1998. So until next time, go see a movie. This has been A Year of Movies, a Planet Geek production. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Once again, another thanks to Ivan Walters for his book, A Year of Movies, 365 films to watch on the day they happened. Look for it online or at your local bookstore. Follow Planet Geek Productions on all of our social media. Through Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, and Letterboxd, search for Planet Geek Productions. On X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. You can also reach out to us through email at planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, go see a movie.